another edition of the ISOOSI Chat, our regular Tuesday session to talk all things SEO, web marketing, e-commerce. I'm here today with Carlos Fernandes, with Erik Stafford, with Rob and with Warren, and we hope to have some more guests joining us later. This week we thought we'd look at social media and particularly how it intersects with SEO. There's been a lot of talk in recent months about whether or not Google Pluses will help your ranking, whether or not Facebook likes will help you get to the top of the charts. The main thing that we're going to look at today is what is the value of social media in SEO and in e-commerce generally. Hi guys, how are you doing?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I'm happy to be here today and to have a chance to chew the fat as always with some of my favourite guys.
This is a really interesting topic because I know nothing at all about it. So, Carlos, tell me about social media and SEO.
That's a pretty broad subject. It's getting more and more, important by as time's going on. You know, it's like where to start with that kind of broad subject. In terms of trying to get stuff indexed, there's a big misconception, I think, in terms of SEO, that the more tweets or the more likes, the more shares a page gets or a piece of content gets, it's going to help ranking. It may help, Googlebot or the search engine robot certainly find that piece of content. Discovery. There's a big, in other words, there's a big difference between discovery and ranking signals, and I think that's where a lot of people, start missing in terms of understanding it. It certainly will help the piece of content get discovered a lot quicker if you are able to kind of get tweets out to it and shares and stuff like that. But in terms of ranking signals, that is still a subject that a lot of people are doing research on that is not fully clear. But I think we've all got some beliefs that there are certain some ranking signals there, but it's not right now a major factor in ranking. Would you agree with that, Ammon?
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing I always think about the way that social and search interact is that Google is certainly able to look at a lot of user data these days, the way that people are interacting with sites. Now, if you get a few hundred people to your site through social media and they're interacting, yeah, I believe the search engines are able to measure that in a variety of ways. We've certainly talked about Chrome in the past as a tool that Google could be using to get a lot of user data, how much time they're spending on a page, how many pages they're visiting. We certainly know that Google Analytics can play into giving them certain information. We know that the old webmaster toolbars and Google toolbars of the past would give Google information on which pages you were visiting and where.
I was just going to throw something in here real quick. I've always viewed social media, and Carlos and the guys and I do a bunch of social media for clients, and I've always viewed social media purely from a brand extension point of view, right? Like that's where you go to kind of extend your message, and that's where you go to interact and be kind and be funny. And Warren will be the first to tell you, if he can figure out how to unmute his mic, that the people that do well on social media are the people that don't sell really hard on social media. They're just interacting and they're starting conversations and they're being front of mind. And Flo from Progressive is a great example of this. Her Facebook page is fantastic, and she doesn't sell. They don't sell. They don't talk about insurance at all on that page. But what I find interesting is when we start to bring into this discussion, like Carlos had said, if you've got a blog post, or if you've got a press release or another piece of content or something in particular that's on your website, and you can use social media to get people to that content, and they carry that discussion over to there. And a good example is like some of the posts that Ammon and some of the other experts have done on the ISOOSI blog. Suddenly when the ISOOSI blog is getting all these posts and comments and really active, really intelligent discussion happening, I do believe that would probably impact SEO.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is the the thing to go. You know, before we get too far into this, I've got to tell you one of my absolute peeves about social media. The whole internet is social media. Long before we had little brochure websites, it started off with email. Then we had bulletin board servers. We had IRC chat. We had all these lovely social interactions. And suddenly, last to the party, came people wanting to sell. Commercial media was the last thing to happen. Social media is the internet. And what we've been trying to do over recent years, by recent I mean the past 15, is try and educate businesses that, look, you're in a social environment, you've got to behave socially. It's great to have your own LinkedIn on as well, but be careful when you interrupt other people's interactions on social networks, which is the things like Facebook and stuff like that. We've got to separate that out. Social media is all of the internet. Social networks are what most people are talking about when they talk about social media. And I think it's really important to always remember the context of the internet is largely you're either talking to somebody at their desk at work or you're talking to somebody in their own home. And you kind of got to always slant your approach to people in that regard, that you are a guest somewhere they feel at home whenever you're speaking to them online.
Interesting. Warren, do you have any thoughts on this? Are you unmuted?
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm here. I think Ammon's just about got it there. Even before the internet, business is people, and you know we had the whole 20th century where we were able to put up. It wasn't really putting up barriers. We were building giant distribution system, mass marketing, mass communications, and it's all one way. And people never wanted to. You know, there's nothing in our biology or evolution that tells us, you know, we like sitting in front of a box and being told what to buy. Nobody likes that. We'd rather go to a party. We'd rather be with friends. So the evolution is obviously back to the internet. The evolution of the internet is going the way of what people want, which is people want to buy from those that they know, like, and trust. If I do a Google search, what I really want to find out is, you know, where is Erik hanging out? You know, I may be searching for pizza and Erik's eating sushi, or maybe Erik's not even eating. I figured out how to feed myself a long time ago. But if Erik's in town and the search engine knows that, and it says, why don't you go here instead? I want to hear that. And the social signals are so important that way that it like dwarfs whatever you can get from the information. So right now, currently, we're not getting, you know, Google hasn't figured out a way to go look up where Erik is and tell me, hey, you know, Erik's across the street, why don't you go see him? But that's the direction it's headed, which is always, you know, people interacting with people, not information. And all the information and everything is great. It still has to be there. Nothing we've learned thus far is wrong, but the idea of using SEO as a way to trick the search engine into doing something is just like foreign to the way any real human being wants to do business.
But when I talk about social, I'm talking about flipping the traditional media model on its head, whereas before, brands were largely owned by the companies and maybe by the ad agency that represented the company, right? And you know, sure, advertising agencies would do some focus testing and they would do some outreach to kind of see if they were on the right track, but never before has it been like it is now, where people have access to so much information in terms of recommendations, positive and negative reviews, and also social experiences, right? And to me, that's where the branding comes into it, right? And it's kind of the old way of thinking, like press releases, for example. You push them out and you hope that people read them, right? No, not anymore. Now they have to be keyword friendly so that you're getting the right audience, and they have to tie into a larger picture. And this is a lot of what Carlos and I focus on at ISOOSI, right, is getting the right people to reach that content, to act on that content, and move into an environment where they can extend that brand.
I think we have a semantical difference. I think it's an illusion that we owned the brand at one time. You know, it's always the brand is also always the goal is what exists in the customer's head. I like to define brand as a relationship between the the company and the customer.
Sure.
And it's been that way. We just didn't have any tools to listen up until fairly recently. Mass listening. You couldn't hear what a million people were saying.
Yeah. I mean, the brand is what exists in the customer's head, Warren, but largely the companies and the ad agencies that represented them were responsible for that message and could control it. Now, anyone with a computer can go on Facebook or Yelp and positively or negatively impact the brand, and that never was possible before.
So in the 20th century, we had, we all had a bag of hammers. We were able to work on a brand in a certain way. We didn't have the tools of listening on Yelp and finding out something. And the best thing about a Yelp review is not that it affects search, blah blah blah, all those kind of things. The best thing about Yelp is that you can actually read it, find out where you're doing something wrong and fix it, find out where you're doing something right and do more of it, and that like dwarfs all the other signals that you're getting from Yelp. So right now, yeah, we still very much care about whether or not it's functioning right. In fact, the number one thing I see about people worrying about local place listings is getting them up, that they exist. I know as a user, if I go looking for, I did this last year. I was looking for a pair of shoes, and I was in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I saw all the local listings, and I didn't know whether to believe what they were saying, whether or not the shoe store I was looking for was across the street, or that was just part of the, a mall full of shoes. Turned out I went in there, it was a good place. The reviews were all wrong because they were so incomplete. And once I went in, great, I got to review this. Did that help the next person? I hope so. But I think we're a long way from really getting the consensus of, like, I care what you guys think a lot more than I care what the whole population thinks. And that's the direction the signals are going. So maybe I'm pushing for the future, and somatically we're using terms that are from the past, the way we all grew up, when all we had was hammers. So we have to describe everything as to what kind of nail it is. But I think there's a lot more out there than we know about when we're just looking at what the ranking signal is.
Ammon, I know this sort of stuff fascinates you in terms of the combining marketing and the discussion, the communication that happens around marketing with SEO. And that's really what we're talking about, right, is making it friendly for the search engines, but also making it friendly for the users. And there's a fine line that you toe there. And so, Ammon, let me ask you this. Do you think of traditional SEO tactics? Do you think of things like keywords and placement when you're focusing on creating social outreach for yourself or your clients? Does that even factor into your equation at all?
It depends on the exact campaign I'm running and exactly what marketing objective I'm at the time. If one of the important things is, well, let's take a real example. There's been some clients in the past whose position was that they were getting close to their exit strategy, and they were looking to bump up the price of their company for an exit, for selling it. And one of their important things in that case was to increase rankings on specific terms. Vanity search suddenly had a value because, right or wrong, some people buying a company are going to pay a lot more for one that's top of its market for this keyword, top of its market for that keyword, as opposed to just looking at what they should be looking at, which is, sales, profits, that kind of thing, business. So when that's an objective, of course, I've got to focus on getting keywords, and that the social media is going to be a tool in the box to increase the position on the keywords. And I'm going to look to get people in on specific verticals, specific ideas, ideally to spark conversations there that are going to help my client and going to be specific to a particular topic, which is going to be naturally keyword specific to their needs. But there's other terms when it's much more about getting feedback. I mean, one of the things I really love about social media is that, well, years ago I worked for a market research company, and have you any idea what a business used to pay for a decent bit of market research, which you can get as simply as asking a question on Facebook now. Honestly, I mean the amount it would have cost you to get a panel of 2,000 people to answer 5 questions, you were looking at tens of thousands of pounds. And now it's going to be 15 minutes on Facebook and a few thank yous. That is amazing. You've got to take this kind of thing seriously. It's not just about SEO, but when I'm doing SEO, of course, social is a factor I'm massively getting in there. But one thing that I wrote about this week, and that I think everyone needs to take away, is that we've got to stop this idea of tying everything back to SEO. The world is not SEO. SEO was great because it was the first way we could target people contextually. It was the first really good online contextual marketing. These are people who are actively looking for something. I'm not interrupting them. They're already looking for it. All I've got to do is make sure they can see my answer in the crowd. I'm just helping them find me, but they're already looking. That's what SEO did, and it was a beautiful form of targeting. Google's entire economy is built on it. Pay-per-click has been very kind to them, thank you very much. You know, it's one of the greatest forms of marketing for permission-based that there's ever been, because it's request-based marketing. Social is different. Now, here you are running the risk of interrupting. So instead, you've got to invite conversations and start social interactions that are going to bring people to you socially. I always say, you're always prepared to pay a little bit more to buy from somebody you trust. You're always interested in buying from a friend in the trade. There can be 6 rival businesses, but if one of them your buddy works at and he tells you it's good, even if it's not the best, you just know that you're not going to be ripped off there. It gets rid of all those doubts. And I've always said that blogging, social media, social networking, the real point of all of that is it's your chance to become everybody's friend in the trade. People who've never even spoken to you, if they've read your stuff and trust you, they feel like you're the win search. They're looking for your company.
Yeah, I love that. You know, Carlos and I back in the day used to do a bunch of trade shows and a bunch of like Chamber of Commerce events.
I still have nightmares about that.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting for sure. But one of the things that Carlos and I would notice was there would be a lot of these people at these trade shows that would come up to you, and they would be like, you know, a 6-year-old kid that someone had given 6 cups of coffee and an espresso. They'd be, hey, you know, my name's so-and-so. Here's my card. This is what I do, and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, we got great deals right now, and blah, 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 blah. And when people approach you that way, it's just it's a major turnoff. And, you know, Carlos and I just met Kevin Doory, who's on the Hangout. We met at PubCon in Vegas, and the whole conversation started by, hey, man, what do you do? You know, you got to listen, and it's got to be a conversation. It can't just be you spewing a bunch of verbal diarrhea about how great you are and what you do. No one wants to hear that. And if it's a conversation and you're truly interested in other businesses, then quickly synergies kind of just pop up, and you're like, oh, hey, well, wait, you know, we kind of do this, you kind of do that. And I mean, that's the way real business happens, right? That's the way real business happens. Like Ammon said, you know, it's an amazing opportunity to let people get to know you across miles of distance where they never would have known you before. And so, Carlos, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, because it seems like when we talk about the intersection of SEO and social, it's not so much making your social media SEO friendly or considering SEO in terms of your social media, but it's using social media as a brand extension, a way to start conversations, a way to get involved, and then moving them into a situation where it does impact your SEO, like, for example, on your own site.
Yeah, it's again, if you read the article that Ammon's just posted, I think it was yesterday, on ISOOSI, you know, it's basically like social needs to be just thought of it, you know, an engagement channel in itself, and you shouldn't really be thinking of SEO when you embark on that journey and when you try to you know, put your brand out there and start up those conversations. But one thing I'm interested in more so is, you know, even if it's a byproduct, just say that it, like what Ammon was saying before, that SEO is impacted, and you know, you're probably all aware of that study that Erik did about Mark Trepagan's done a lot of work on this as well, about the impacts of Google Plus shares and Google, plus ones on a particular post. So Eric's study was basically that it didn't impact, the ranking of a particular piece. So I mean, I think right now we're all in a kind of a pot of not knowing. People are doing studies on it, and nobody really knows the impact it has on ranking. Like Ammon said, my belief is that it does. That Google is smart enough to be able to discern between somebody who goes and gets a bunch of plus ones, or buys a bunch of tweets, or buys Facebook shares for a particular thing, where it's not really a real conversation happening about a particular topic, right? But it is a natural conversation where you've got all these people actually talking about it. But there's a lot of folks out there that are, right now feel that Google plus ones, Google shares, whatever, all these signals aren't really impacting ranking in any particular way. So what I would say is you've really just got to attack social as if SEO wasn't even part of it. You've just got to go about your way of trying to get your conversations out there, your brand out there, and like you said, Eric, like start up natural conversations, like like we did at PubCon, just like it was a trade show, and then if SEO is impacted, let Google figure that out, let the search engines figure that out, because it will come naturally.
I'll add one thing to that. The smartest thing I ever heard was old guy who admitted he didn't understand social at all. I think he was wrong. He had a new job as CMO of Sharpie pens, and I was on a program speaking with him, and I'm looking at the guy and I'm going, what's he going to know? Because people with gray hair can't possibly know anything.
Easy, Warren.
And the guy gets up there, he's got me by 10, 15 years. And the guy gets up there and says, well, when I got to Sharpie, I found out that there were a lot of people online already talking about Sharpie. And I said, why don't we just go help them? And I think that's the essence of what the switch is in social. It's not something you can go out and push and make happen. It's like viral marketing and a lot of other terms we talk about. We'd all love to have our video go viral and get 10 million hits. And there are things you could do that could make that happen a little bit more. But at the end of the day, it's a lot better to go figure out where is the thing that's working, where are the people congregating? Where are the people who spend all day talking about Sharpie pens or whatever the product is? And in a lot of consumer products, that's very direct and easy to figure out. The most famous story I could think of is Target at one time going after bloggers who talked about the thrills of shopping at Target. And when they started, they weren't going to help them; they were going to get rid of them. They interfaced with them, they talked to them, they figured out what was going on, and then some corporate decision came along and they got rid of everything, and basically pissed off everybody that was blogging about Target. Disney has the same problem with trademarks. There's a lot of things to work out on that, and then I started thinking of how do you take that to B&B or the banks or healthcare. Maybe people don't want to talk about how great their banking relationship is in a social way. So it really does depend on the brand, but no matter what your brand is, there's somebody out there talking about something. And you may have to dig a little bit farther, like for instance, banks know to go where small business people are talking because they control a lot of accounts that are growing fast. That's why you see a bank at a chamber of commerce. You don't necessarily see the bank at the PTA meeting, but they will be at the chamber of commerce. They figured out somebody to talk to that's interested in what they have to talk about, and maybe wants to say, hey, you know what, I really wish my bank would do, and you're listening, and you can help them. So it gets tougher with some brands, But I think we take a cue from the consumer brands where we go looking for the fans and try to take care of them.
Just before we welcome in the Steve and Jake, I just want to go back to that point because I guess that was the main focus of today's chat was social signals and this whole again when Google Plus started coming out, and there was, as soon as you get a new environment, it's like everybody tries to leverage that to do SEO. Everybody, it all goes back to SEO, and I agree with Ammon, it shouldn't be like that. But everybody wants to rank. So whether it was plus ones or tweets, you've got all these pop-up websites that like come up and try and sell tweets or sell Facebook shares. They sell plus ones. And, we started the conversation off about this in terms of does it affect ranking, and I believe you were saying, your feeling was that it did, Ammon, and I guess,
there's correlation. Let's put it that way. There is correlation. That
right.
Success on one will help you get success on the other, mostly because it's still working on the people front. It's still, if people are interacting with you, if people are finding your page through social and interacting with it, it is going to help you on SEO sooner or later, because some of those people are going to link to you. Some of those people are going to be talking about you. Some of those people are going to be spending time on your site. Some of those people are going to be affecting your Google Analytics. All of these things are sending signals to Google that this page has some traction, it's got some importance, it's worth ranking. And Google, if they have to change the algorithm to determine that, will be doing it. That's their job. That's what Google are trying to do.
So when it comes to links and links from Google Plus accounts, is your feeling that they treat, again, I'm kind of just throwing this out there, I've got my own opinions about this, but in terms of the signals that come from social media platforms, whether they be Google Plus or whatever, are you saying that they categorize them then totally differently in terms of either juice or whatever that flows through?
There's no doubt that they do. We've watched it evolve. There was a time when if you tweeted something, it would appear in the top of Google within seconds. And that relationship ended, and I think that's for the good, because something gets popular, it's like a mob going to it. That's not that's not the search engine's job. The search engine's job is a little bit more subdued than what's popular this very second. So,
I'll let Steve and Jake jump in here in a minute, but I mean there is a difference between fresh content, and I think we talked about this a little bit last week. When there is, Google can categorize things in terms of freshness, but then the ranking that has will dissipate over time. So it's kind of almost a false result. Steve, do you want to jump in?
I think our gardeners might crash our Hangout this morning, but let me know if it gets too loud in the background. 7 o'clock in the morning, Carlos, I'm going to kill you. So on the topic of social media, when I think about how it interacts as a social signal, again, I think everybody agrees that years ago it was, all these different things, interactions and the number of followers and all this sort of thing. And what I think I get, and I haven't done any experiments on it, but what I think is the real social signal is it goes back to PageRank and how much PageRank is passed from a profile page. So for me, if I look at person A and I look at person B, and person A has thousands of interactions and they're active and all this stuff is going on, but none of it's really real. It's just fictitious stuff that was created through microworkers or Mechanical Turk or whatever, made to look real, kind of like that humorous video I just sent you guys. On the other side, there's Bill Gates. Not very many interactions, but he's got thousands of links to his profile page, right? Thousands of mentions of his profile page, and so I think it's the PageRank or the authority of the individual's profile page, from a linking perspective, that's really passing through, any sort of authority to a site. So I don't really think it's about let's create thousands of followers and let's make it look like we're really important and I'll have all this interaction. it's not real, I think Google sort of detects it and it says, your profile really isn't linked to much or talked about much. Not sure that this is really going to pass authority through. So I think it just comes back down to linking, in the days of link building and how important that individual profiles page is in terms of what is actually going to get passed. But again, I haven't done any testing on it. It's just from my own experience and looking at some of the brands that I manage and watch, and then some of the individuals who kind of go gung-ho, who haven't really been able to affect rank. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on it.
I deal with links in social media an entirely different way.
Mm-hmm.
I've dealt with some very large sites with hundreds of thousands of user-generated content. Dealing with people gaming the system is a full-time occupation. It's something you take seriously. Google's had years to learn this lesson in the hardest way possible. I wouldn't be tracking the links at all. I'd be tracking the click-throughs. And if you don't think that Google are tracking clicks on links and who by and what platform, whose profile clicked on this link, that's going to be the social signal. Not that you posted the link. That doesn't matter a damn if nobody clicked on it. Great, I've just put a link up to something nobody was interested in. No matter who I am, even if I'm Bill Gates, why should Google care? But what it will care about is if I put a link up, even if I'm a nobody, and Bill Gates clicks through on it. That's going to count a lot.
Because of his juice.
Because of his authority, yeah. Because the number of people are saying he's interesting doesn't necessarily mean he's going to rank for very much himself, but of course he'll be up on the influencers type lists. But if he's clicked on it, somebody that lots of people find interesting found this interesting, that's getting back to the core of what Google were trying to do with PageRank. And it's getting to the real core and the bit that's hard to manipulate. Because no matter how much I pay, it's very difficult for me to make Bill Gates click on my link. Unless he's interested.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. So I've got a question here. I want to switch gears. And here is the question, and it's more of just a straight SEO question. It doesn't have much to do with social, but the question is, when you're writing content on an ongoing basis for yourself or for a client, do you do it from a foundation of keyword research first? And I know that Carlos and I have some thoughts on this, but I would love to hear what you guys think about this. Do you guys start with keyword research?
Well, it's twofold. I start out the initial engagement for a client. It's definitely based on keyword research. You have to know what you're attempting to bring people in with. You can't just you can't just give a CEO or a company blog a free rein. You have to focus them. But after, like for ongoing engagements, I do a lot of interaction with the social communities. Like I lean on them to see what the followers are talking about and try to branch out non-traditional keyword research. Because if we keep talking about what got them there, they're gonna leave. You gotta keep getting them interested in what they're doing, and then use your followers and your community to then drive your content, because then that'll get more people that they talk to into your social circle. And on, I don't write the content or I don't manage the content for our existing customers and clients as much as I do with the opinion of trying to grow their communities. And if you engage with the people that are already there, then they act as your little spokespeople, or they'll go and market your content for you by promoting it to their circles. And the idea is sort of like Google Hangouts or Google Circles is trying to be like, well, these people look at this, which is what I was looking for, so maybe I'll read that. So sort of a long answer to the, I start out with keyword research, and you have to pay attention to it so that you don't get off of topic, but to just be focused, in my mind, on the initial keyword research, you're going to put yourself in a hole and start repeating yourself rather quickly.
Absolutely. And the thing is, it's kind of like PR and juice from back in the day. I've been doing SEO since about 1999. And, I mean, it's a foundation for kind of seeing where you are in the grand scheme of things. Now, I agree. There's a lot transitioning here with the not provided from analytics, and they're kind of taking away those pieces, and then that opens up the question for me of what are they planning to do here with AdWords Express and getting a better hand of monetizing search phrases. And so I do still do keyword research, and I do still check my Moz rankings and stuff like that for a foundation to see kind of where things are. And I made the reference to the page rank information from back in the day, and people used to be like, oh, what's your PR and what's the page rank? And I'm like, look, page rank 2s rank above 6s. Like, I've seen that happen time and time again. But it's just a good idea for seeing. At that time, it was like, well, it gives me an indication of how many people are linking to you and stuff like that. And so I'm a big component or big fan of, checking to see where you're ranking with your current key phrases, because let's face it, people are still going to look at those key phrases and what you do. And while you may not drive 5,000 visitors from a specific key term, let's say you only drive 5, but they are specifically targeted at exactly what you do, how the increased conversion is on that term. So we are kind of, though, at that transition phase where it's like, well, what's happening now? Where's this going? And then the other thing I was going to jump in on real quick was I totally agree with what you guys were talking about, the difference on social media and SEO. And it's interesting because I've never really bundled the two together. To me, they're both part of like your online marketing strategy. And social search is not there yet, but like you guys said, I mean, it's clear that that's entirely the direction that Google probably is going to go in, because, I mean, like everyone said here, let's just say you post something and nobody clicks on it. There's no ripple effect to it on Google+. It's just a dead post. Well, why would Google really think that if nobody else was interested in your 10,000 or 20,000 Google+ followers to click it, reshare it, engage in it, then maybe it wasn't that interesting as far as a piece of information, and then therefore not rank it as high.
One thing we're not covered as well is there's a big difference between search, so in terms of like how it impacts SEO, and there's whether it's small businesses that just are still getting their social strategy together, and they're wanting, we're all saying you should kind of do social as a totally separate engagement channel, and if it impacts SEO, then great. But there's small businesses out there that are still trying to get it all together, and they do want to know, does it have an impact, right? So there's a big difference between search, unpersonalized search when you're not logged in, when the user is not logged into Google, and personalized search when they're logged in. And if you've got a whole bunch of people that have kind of liked and shared a piece of content, and they're in your particular ecosystem, when you do a search for a particular search phrase, you're going to get search rankings. You're going to get result sets that are affected by your peers. So if a bunch of your people that are your friends on Google Plus have all liked a piece of content, you're going to get those pieces of content preferentially ranked. So it does. I mean, that's just one instance where social does impact SEO and search rankings directly. All right, yes, the users have to be logged in, but when you start looking at the statistics now of how many people are actually performing personalized searches, that is not to be discounted.
Yep.
You've still got to remember that the average user, isn't that familiar still with cookies and what it all means. And when Google sets, one of its nice 50-year infinite cookies, that's it. They're logged in for life. They don't have the option. They may wonder how Google always knows it's them, but half of them don't even know how to sign out.
Yeah.
That's not a big issue for them. And with more and more people using tablets and not having the same controls, there's the number of moms using tablets now as their primary means to access the internet. Do you think they're worried about cookies? Of course they're not. Do you think they're logged in? Absolutely. Do you think Google knows where they are? Absolutely. The device is telling them this. Personal search is going to become much more and more the norm. We're not even going to question it. And it's kind of us techies who worry about cookies and worry about whether we're logged in or not. It's not the average user. They just care whether it works or not.
Yeah. Carlos and I talk to clients all the time, and they're like, we're not getting any business, but we're on page 1 for all of our keywords. And Carlos shows them how to log out, and they're like, oh, can we hire? So, Steve, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, do you do a bunch of keyword research kind of as a foundation when you start working with clients?
Absolutely. And, I'm pretty organized when it comes to keywords, and I like to keep checklists for pretty much everything. So I define content in 3 different ways. It's informational, right? It's about the company. It's your privacy policy. It's your whatever. It's selling content, so it has a purpose to try to convert the visitor into a customer. Or it's content marketing or topical content. And so basically we have a workbook in Google Docs, and it's got 3 tabs on it: informational, selling content, or topic content. And then each spreadsheet has this series of checklists, columns that we kind of keep track of everything. So for keywords, what's our focus keyword for the page going to be? Of course, we definitely do a lot of keyword research in the beginning. It takes 2 to 3 days really for an account to come up with this categorized, beautiful, bucketed list of keywords. So every specific page has a bundle. It's focus keyword and supportive keywords. Focus keyword, supportive keywords. We hand it off to the business, and we give them the recommendations in those other columns, right? Like trust logos and sales principles, reciprocity, urgency, scarcity. We give them all these things depending on the type of content that it is. If it's topical, right, then we make it like a power content piece, and we give them that keyword bundle, and then we recommend things such as feature and mention experts and interview experts, ego bait, using free downloads and other things that we can get people to want to share that content with. But the keyword is, like Ammon said, it's fundamental. So I think giving the client this list of focus keywords is a critical part of creating the content, provided you know what type of content and what are the other attributes that are going to help identify and convert that customer.
Wow, dude, you're a ninja. We just throw all the keywords into a bucket and let the writing team kind of stick their hand in it and pick the keywords that they want. We don't do anything nearly that organized. No, I'm just kidding. I think that's really I think that's really cool.
I was about to jump in then, Eric.
Actually, I'd say I'd like to hear Doc talk a little bit here, because Doc's been testing approach without using keywords, and he's been having some pretty good success with it. So. If you don't mind, Doc, would you share that with us?
Please.
Sure. Yeah, I wouldn't say totally keywordless. Certainly, like Kevin says, my foundational work with a new client always involves keyword research. The last thing I do is paying attention to what they put on the discovery form, because so many business owners think that what floats in their mind is automatically what the users are going to use, and they're wrong. But once we get the keywords, we use those basically just to find similar terms, similar phrases, ancillary phrases that may be related. But one of the tools that I like using is bottlenose. Okay, particularly if you're looking at the social side of things, bottlenose is kind of a wonder wheel on steroids for finding ancillary terms. And what we have been able to do, taking advantage of, and this is pre-Hummingbird even, we were seeing some success with this, writing to the concept, to a contextual writing rather than keyword-based. The premise being that the algorithms, I think, are far more advanced than most people realize in terms of being able to determine what the document is about. So what we'll try to do is, by writing to the user, not necessarily predominantly, but almost exclusively, making the piece very contextually focused and not worrying about using the keyword per se, but using language that conveys the contextual meaning of the piece, we've been able to see, actually been able to get a document to rank for a keyword that was not even present anywhere on the page. Now, that doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. The upside of that particularly is the fact that since these algorithms are learning algorithms, this actually aids those algos in expanding their understanding of some terms. So, are you going to see dramatically increasing results in the next 3 months? No, of course not. The next 2 years, probably to some degree. In the next 5 years, I have no doubt that we're going to see some search queries that are going to be able to rank a document, determine the relevancy of a document to a context without the key phrase that the user put into the search window even being present on a page. And it takes a rather pronounced, unique example to see that happen today.
I think for now, Google is able to fake a lot of signals rather than really work them out. But it's using correlation, and if there's a company anywhere that's going to very quickly find this correlates with meaning, even if we don't understand meaning, we can, and 90% of the time that's going to do the same job. Of course, Google have got it and they're using it, and I think that's there. I just don't think that full semantics is quite in yet, as Doc is saying too. But there's an awful lot that's getting very, very close.
The other big thing about keyword research and how we use it with social and SEO is kind of product development. Actually, it's like, for example, a clothing store that we work with had black blouses, women's blouses, and we found by doing extensive keyword research particular types of blouses, types of different lengths of sleeves, things like that. So they were able to then tweak their product line to bring in something that they hadn't really thought about. Or again, financial clients, that had an interest checking account, a high interest checking account, but then they see a huge, segment of a different type of checking account that they hadn't thought about, student checking accounts with particular rewards associated to them or things like that. So a company may stay out with a particular product set, and by doing keyword research, not only does that enable them to then go out and look about the viability of other products that they can easily tweak their current product range to kind of encapsulate, to grow their product range, if you will, and then that obviously filters into social, SEO, content writing, and everything. So keyword research is hugely important throughout the whole range of your marketing strategies. But like Kevin said, once you've done that initial keyword research, yes, you can still keep going back to it as a foundation and kind of looking at that analysis, but it shouldn't be something that just guides you, all the way as a blueprint. It's there to enable you to kind of grow your product stream, get more things out there in social, but it's not just, a hard, fast line that you just follow completely.
Lots of great information. I mean, the original topic that we wanted to really kind of focus on was SEO as it relates to social media and how the two kind of impact each other. But I think this is incredibly helpful, and I think for people to kind of learn some of what you guys are doing so that they can apply it to their own business is really, really important. So with that thought in mind, I'd love each of you guys to share one final thought as we wrap up this Hangout for today. And let's just go left to right as we go across the bottom.
Yeah, sure. Okay, my thought, I'll give you one that I hope nobody else was thinking of using and leave them plenty of space. I think one of the great things that people should be playing with is using search to promote their social and social to promote their search. In other words, use your social media, your conversations, a bit like some of the TV ads are now doing, where they're starting a campaign and find us by doing a search on this and search on that. Look, if Google knows you keep coming up for this result, and lots of people are searching for you almost directly, that is a ranking signal. And likewise, if search can be used to help boost your social efforts, boost your community, you've got a win-win there as well. And I think as this efforts together, making them work much better as a whole, as a connected whole, so that it's bringing people in lots of ways and giving them lots of ways to interact with you. That's going to be key. So, yeah, although search and social are different things and interrelate, the real joy here is going to be use some cross-pollination and get the two things blooming.
I love that. So, Doc, we're just kind of sharing final thoughts on social media and how it impacts SEO and maybe the marriage of the two. Do you have a final thought you'd like to share on that as we wrap up the call today?
Well, I certainly believe that they are married. I think that social is taking still an increasingly important role in the search engine's ability to understand authority. And I've been for some time now singing the song that authority is going to be the new page rank. Okay, it's going to be an authority that is given to an entity, whether it be an individual or a company or a website. So social has got to be an important part of that. I don't see any way around it. It's got to be, and as Ammon was saying earlier, it's not the fact that you put the link up. It's not the fact that that you leave a comment on somebody's blog or article. It's the fact that somebody responds to that. They click through on the link. They respond to your comment. It's the interaction, and what better resource than social activity and interaction to capture that.
Jake, do you have any thoughts you want to share as we wrap things up?
No, I mean, I think that we've pretty much covered. I could go into length and just say, the exact same things that you guys have just said, but I totally agree with where you guys are at.
There you go. What he said. Yeah, what he said. Kevin, anything you want to
add? No. Well, yes. I think that there are some people that shouldn't be doing social, and the ones that aren't, that want to, are usually the ones who shouldn't. It's either, if it's not natural, if it's not natural for your company, then you shouldn't be doing it. Just because it's the in thing doesn't mean you have to interact with your customers that way. And it's finding a happy medium in between the two. Like, not everybody needs to be in the social atmosphere, but you can still interact with your customers. Just getting businesses to understand it's more about how they view you, not what you're projecting out. And that's difficult with some industries.
Steve?
So yeah, I agree with Kevin. I think it's important. I think it's important that you know your business and whether you should be social or not. But I also think it's important to listen, even if you are a business that shouldn't be interacting on social. I think being able to at least listen to what's being said about your company and your competitors can give you some really good insight and allow you to respond quickly. But for me, my one wrap up in social is really to try to build connections with influencers and people in your industry that would be willing to share some great piece of content that you do create. So when a month or a year comes along, you can reach out to all those great influencers and say, check this out. And if they love it, they'll share it with their thousands of followers, and you'll get lots of great traffic to your site.
Cool. Warren?
Well, I think of social as being people, so the only business that shouldn't be interested in being social, and I'm not talking about using social media networks, I'm about being social, listening at the very least. Only business that wouldn't want to do that would be one that doesn't deal with people. So at some point we've got to interact with people. But yeah, we don't need to go out and be social. We just like that. People are social to begin with, and so open your ears, listen, and my two-word marketing program is listen and love, because you listen and you treat people like the people you love, like your friends, and it's as simple as that. You don't have to be somebody you aren't, or try to go beyond that. Just pay attention and listen, and then respond as you would if you were doing it for a friend. Just like we're doing here. I mean, this is the way to live life, is you have to interact with other people. So rather than calling it social media, I'd much prefer to say let's do business with people. Really like what Ammon said about the using SEO for social. I go beyond that, and I just say everything you want to do, you want to look ubiquitous, and that isn't a large media buy. That's just being someplace, which means you have to actually be there. So, social is cool as long as it's, with people. Doesn't work very well if you're being social with a bot. That's what Steve's video is for.
There are companies who definitely should not do social, though. If you've got one of those companies that has people in your company that you say, don't talk to the customers, you are not a company.
Don't make them
in the
start
loading bay.
talking
If the guys in the loading bay are told, don't talk to customers, then your company shouldn't be doing social, because what you've got to understand is those guys in the loading bay, their wives are your damn customers.
Yep.
Their kids are your customers. Their uncles and nephews. When you understand that your whole company is already talking to people who are your customers, and you embrace that, and more to the point, you empower them. You keep all of your levels of staff informed so that they can not say the wrong thing because you bothered to tell them the right thing. You can do social media, you can do it well. But if you're one of those old school command and control, people are talking about us, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to spend money on a big ad campaign to tell people what people are saying about us, even though it's not what they're saying about us, so that, we'll drown out what they're actually saying. If you're one of those companies, do not go near social media. They will kill you.
Yeah, that's like the NBA saying to spoiled 22-year-old millionaire basketball stars, go get a Twitter account, extend our brand for us. It's going to be great. Nice. There you go.
The only final thing I would add is if you're attacking social, again, you need to not think of it as, okay, I'm going to go and get a Twitter account, Facebook profile account. I wish a lot of companies would actually, think about it from an offline perspective first. Go to your local chamber of commerce, go to trade shows, network. It's a people thing. Social media is a people thing, and it's like, Eric, would we have met Kevin? Maybe Kevin and we would have followed each other on Twitter, but Kevin's shaking his head. But once you meet people and you shake their hands, you got buy each other a drink and start chatting. It's relationships form, and that's so much stronger than anything you can do online. I know it's good to have all these online relationships, and you can build it. But if you start taking your business to trade shows, to local gatherings, to local meetups and chamber of commerce events and things like that, you'll find that your social strategy just develops, and then from there on, your SEO will just I wouldn't even worry about SEO from a social perspective, because if you do it that way and think of your business from an offline perspective first, then everything else will fall into place.
I love that advice. I think that's a perfect note to end things on. So, guys, I really appreciate it. I always learn a lot on these calls, and I guess to wrap things up, my only thought would be to just echo what Ammon and what Warren said, which is that, with Google or without Google, people have been doing business the same way for thousands and thousands of years. Find a platform that allows you to reach the right customers, find an audience that you can connect with, and then be yourself and have a good offer, have a good pitch. I mean, it really all comes down to that, and engage and listen and be interactive. I mean, there's no rocket science to social media, and in our experience, the people that do best on social media sell the least on social media. They create interesting and engaging conversations, and then they move people where they need to move them. And if your strategy involves SEO at that point, so be it, and I think that's great, but that would be my final thought as well. So, guys, thank you all very much. It's been an awesome hangout. Join us next Tuesday for another ISOOSI chat. The topic next Tuesday, copy and content creation. We're going to talk all about writing magical words that sell and make people do your evil bidding.
All right, guys, thanks very much. See you next week.